silence, eternal, deep, serene. Such was the universe long before the first human steps echoed, before the mind awakened, capable of hearing this silent whisper of time. Earth appeared more than 4.5 billion years ago. It was a fiery ball swirling in the cold void. Gradually, it cooled, covered itself with a rocky crust, sheltered by oceans and wind. And it was here, in the silence of the primeval world, that something infinitely important was born: life. It began simply, with tiny molecules, knowing neither purpose nor time. But in these molecules already lay an incredible possibility: to grow, to change, to develop. Beneath the depths of the ancient ocean, forms arose, so simple that they needed no eyes, no senses, no will. Everything proceeded slowly, unhurriedly, in the rhythm of time itself. Millions of years passed unnoticed. Molecules connected, disintegrated, replicated themselves, erred, survived. There, in the depths of the past, began the great journey, the journey to humanity. You almost hear the breath of this ancient earth. It passes through epochs. The flow of time here is not measured in seconds or days. It flows in millennia, in a cooling volcano, in the drift of continents, in every layer of sedimentary rock. This breath is inaudible, but it holds everything: the memory of every raindrop, every ray of sunlight, every glimmer of life. Our journey begins not with cities or speech. It begins with movement, with reaction, with memory passed down in molecules. You are a descendant of all living things. Your body remembers the waters of ancient seas, through which fish resembling the first vertebrates once swam. In your breath is an echo of an atmosphere full of ammonia. In your heart, the rhythm of billions of years of evolution. But most importantly, reason lives within you. It has carried the same question through millions of years. Where did we come from? Today, you will not hear a story, a lesson, or a list of facts. You will hear a journey, a story without haste, a story in which every step is the breath of the planet. We will pass through nameless times, look into the eyes of extinct species, listen to the wind hum through the bones of mammoths, and whisper through the foliage of ancient forests. We will trace the path that leads from the simplest forms to the first thoughts, from cell to consciousness, from silence to word. Everything you hear actually happened. It is not a myth, not an allegory. It is the path of life on earth, the path of man as part of that life. And this path is not complete. It continues even now as you listen to these words. Listen closely. Perhaps you will hear the breath of your most distant ancestors. It still resonates within you. And as you fall asleep, the story will flow beside you, quietly, calmly, like the water of an ancient ocean, lulling all living things. You lie in silence, and before you opens a picture that cannot be seen with the eyes. It can only be felt, like the rustle of light, like the echo of a distant explosion, like warmth in the chest. This is the beginning of everything. Time goes back, through layers, epochs, millions and billions of years. Everything returns to the moment when there was no earth. There was no sun. There was nothing but deep, dense darkness. Then there was an explosion, the Big Bang. This event occurred approximately 13.8 billion years ago. From a single point, smaller than an atom, the entire universe was born. Space unfolded, and with it appeared time, matter, and energy. In the very first moments, the simplest elements, hydrogen and helium, began to form. The remaining elements would arise later in the hearts of stars, where temperature and pressure would cause atoms to merge and create heavy nuclei. Billions of stars ignited and died. They were born from gas clouds, compressed under their own mass, and burst into dazzling light. Within them, carbon, oxygen, iron, gold were created. When stars died, they exploded in giant supernovae. Everything we have ever touched, everything we are made of, was born in these explosions. Every cell of your body is stardust. Among these cosmic events, approximately 4.6 billion years ago, in one of the arms of the Milky Way, the Sun appeared. It arose from a huge cloud of gas and dust. Gravity compressed the matter, giving rise to thermonuclear flames at its center. Around it swirled remnants, dust, ice, tiny particles. From them, planets began to form. Among them, the third from the Sun, small, rocky, with liquid water. Earth. The young Earth was different. It was hot, covered in lava and clouds of poisonous gases. The air was heavy, saturated with carbon dioxide, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. Frequent meteorite impacts and volcanic activity made it harsh, but it was in this brutal environment that life originated. This occurred approximately 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. We do not know the exact moment when non-living matter transformed into living matter, but we do know one thing. Life originated in water. Deep in the ocean, in warm hydrothermal vents or shallow coastal lagoons, the simplest molecules began to assemble into chains. These chains could copy themselves, not perfectly, but accurately enough. Thus, evolution began. Errors in copying generated diversity, and this diversity was selected by nature itself. What survived continued the journey. The first living creatures were single-celled. They had no nervous system, no organs, no form that could be called a body. These were the simplest prokaryotes, tiny organisms that lacked a nucleus. They fed on chemical substances dissolved in water. Some obtained energy from hydrogen sulfide, others from sunlight. Thus, photosynthetic life began. Photosynthesis became a turning point. Tiny cells learned to use starlight to create energy. In the process, they released oxygen, a gas that was poisonous to most other forms of life at the time. But over time, Earth's atmosphere began to fill with this new element. An oxygen barrier appeared. Some creatures died, others adapted. Thus began the path to more complex forms of life. The emergence of eukaryotes, cells with a nucleus, was the next step. These cells had an internal structure, organelles, membranes. They could unite into colonies, specialize, become tissues. Thus, multicellular organisms appeared. This was not quick. Almost 2 billion years passed from the first cells to the first multicellular creatures. During this time, continents slowly moved. Mountains grew, seas receded, the climate changed. Water remained the cradle of life, but the first timid attempts to emerge onto land had already begun. Plants spread along the coasts. Animals followed them. Lungs replaced gills. Limbs replaced fins. And with each generation, with each step, life became more diverse. You hear the first breath rising through the water. It is not the breath of a human. It is the breath of a creature unlike anything alive today. But within it is the seed of what will one day call itself human. In every fin, in every rudimentary eye, in every ancient brain, what will later transform into consciousness is already stored. Into memory, into sleep. The path from star to molecule and from molecule to mind is a path where every turn is not accidental. It is full of coincidences, but it leads somewhere. The memory of all this lives within you now. The memory of the universe, of stars, of water, of stone, and of time. And when you close your eyes, you feel as if you're returning to where it all began. This is just the beginning of the journey. Next will be the story of the spinal cord, of lungfish scrambling onto land, of the struggle for survival, and the strange, unpredictable awakening of consciousness. But all that later. For now, you simply rest and listen as the universe whispers its oldest tale, a tale in which you are the main character. Still water, still quiet, green depths. The world remains underwater, soft, flowing. Light barely penetrates the ocean depths, breaking into soft glimmers. Algae grow on the bottom. Ancient life forms slowly swim through the water. The world is almost silent, almost motionless. But within these calm waters, a new chapter begins. Almost 4 billion years have passed since Earth's formation. Life has already survived its first crises, mastered photosynthesis, released oxygen into the atmosphere, and learned to live in new conditions. Now it is ready for complexity. The first organisms appear that have not just a cell, but also a form. Form becomes meaning. For some, long appendages for movement. For others, the simplest oral openings. For still others, sensitive areas that react to light. All this happens in water. It is here that something fundamentally new arises. Symmetry. Body symmetry is what distinguishes animals from other life forms. Left and right now become identical. Front and back emerge. A direction of movement appears. In primitive creatures, something resembling a nerve cord forms, running along the body. This cord becomes the precursor to the spinal cord. It does not yet control the body. It does not think. It does not remember. But it already transmits signals. Light, touch, a chemical impulse, all this can now be transmitted from one part of the body to another. This is the birth of the nervous system. Approximately 540 million years ago, an event occurred that scientists call the Cambrian explosion. In a geologically short period, about 20 million years, life exploded into a diversity of forms. The first creatures with hard shells, with eyes, with limbs appeared. The early ancestors of all modern animals emerged. Among them, creatures that would become the progenitors of vertebrates. They were not yet fish in the usual sense. Their bodies were soft, with a notochord, an elastic rod running along the back. This notochord served as support. Later, it would transform into the spine. It is the notochord that makes more complex movement possible. Jumps, body undulations. It allows the creature to swim faster, escape predators, catch prey. Along with the notochord, the rudiments of a head, sensory organs, a mouth, and sometimes the simplest jaws appear. All these are evolutionary innovations that pave the way for the future. Ancient chordate creatures swim in the ocean among algae, glide along the bottom, burrow into the mud. They are silent, inconspicuous, but within their bodies is already laid what will, hundreds of millions of years later, become the basis of human anatomy. These creatures are our distant ancestors. Approximately 30 million years after the Cambrian explosion, true fish appear. Their bodies already have a cartilaginous or bony skeleton. Fins, jaws, scales. All these are innovations that provide speed, strength, and maneuverability. Eyes develop, Organs of balance appear. The first full-fledged inner ears form. Fish feel the movement of water around them, detect vibrations, and orient themselves in space. Their brain increases, especially its anterior part. This is the first approximation to the future mind. Some fish begin to go beyond the usual. They venture into areas where the water is shallower, where they need to adapt to a lack of oxygen. Their fins become stronger. Some develop rudimentary lungs. All this prepares the transition to land, but for now, water remains their home. About 400 million years have passed since fish became the dominant life form in the oceans. During this time, they filled all niches, from predators to filter feeders, from deep-sea creatures to inhabitants of coral reefs. It is from one of these fish that animals capable of living on land will emerge. But that will happen later. For now, evolution continues to refine the nervous system. Nervous tissue is complex and vulnerable. It requires protection. Thus, the skull and spinal canal appear. Sensory organs group around the head. This includes not only eyes but also smell, balance, and hearing. The head becomes the command center, transmitting signals to the entire body. It is here that the development of a structure that would later be called the brain begins. Primitive fish brains do not possess reason, but they are already capable of remembering, analyzing simple images, avoiding danger, and seeking food. These abilities allow them to survive, and therefore they become established. Gradually, the brain becomes more complex, larger. Its structure increasingly resembles what will one day develop in land animals, in mammals, in primates, and in humans. Silent evolution continues. No wars, no catastrophes, just slow selection. Bones become stronger, muscles stronger, sensory organs more sensitive. Vision develops, especially in predators. An evolutionary race begins between prey and hunter. Those who are faster, who see better, who learn faster, win. While all this is happening, the land remains empty. It is covered by mosses, lichens, the first primitive plants. But along the shores, fish with strong fins are already visible. Some of them, clinging to mud and snags, can pull their bodies out of the water. Their lungs are not yet perfect, but they allow them to breathe air. These are the first steps toward leaving the ocean behind. The body of the future human still swims in ancient waters. Its spine is the memory of fish. Its inner ear is the trace of ancient balance. Its eyes are the evolution of those who first saw light on the seabed. All this forms in the absolute silence of time. You can imagine how this silence envelops you, like water, gently, softly, patiently. You are still in the water, but soon the moment will come when the first limbs stubbornly push the body onto land. From that moment, a new chapter will begin. But for now, only water, only the first backs, and only movement that became the beginning of vertebral history. You still feel the water, but it gradually recedes. Behind you are oceans, corals, and slow waves carrying away the past. Before you arises a new world, the land. It is uninhabited, fresh, full of simple sounds, rustling leaves, the singing of ancient insects, the hum of the wind. This is Earth, about 200 million years ago, the Jurassic period, warm, humid. Forests are dense, tree-like ferns and coniferous trees stretch toward the sun. Here, those who were able to leave the water forever begin a new chapter. Terrestrial vertebrates had long since mastered the land, among them enormous dinosaurs dominating the plains and forests. They were large, strong, and diverse. But in the shadows, at night, under the roots of trees and in burrows, lived other creatures, small, warm-blooded, fast. These are early mammals. They do not rule the world. They hide. They cannot compete with the giants of the Jurassic period. But it is they who carry the future line of evolution leading to humans. Their bodies are covered in fur. They have highly developed sensory organs. They give birth to live young and suckle them with milk. This is nature's new solution, and it will open the way to consciousness. The first mammals were tiny creatures the size of a mouse or rat. They were nocturnal, hiding from diurnal predators, hunting insects. Their large eyes were adapted to darkness. Their brains gradually became more complex. Olfactory lobes, hearing, and tactile receptors developed especially. They could distinguish smells, sounds, the slightest vibrations in the air. All this made them much more sensitive and adaptable than most ancient reptiles. Sleep in mammals becomes deeper, richer. For the first time in Earth's history, the rapid eye movement, REM phase of sleep appears, a state in which the eyes move under the eyelids and the brain actively works, as if awake. Perhaps it was then that the first dreams arose, dreams of smells, shadows, movement. In these dreams, there are no words, but there are feelings. There is memory. There is the beginning of imagination. Warm-bloodedness gives mammals a huge advantage. They can maintain a stable body temperature regardless of the environment. This requires more energy, but allows them to be active day and night, winter and summer. Within their bodies, more complex internal organs develop. The heart becomes four-chambered, the lungs more efficient. The brain receives more and more oxygen, and its tissues grow, especially in the cortical region. It is the cerebral cortex that will, in the future, be the birthplace of speech, memory, and self-awareness. But for now, it is only forming. For now, the mammalian brain is learning to solve simple problems, finding food, caring for offspring, recognizing danger. This is already intelligence, not reasoning, but adaptive. It feels, remembers, reacts, and most importantly, it transmits. For the first time in history, young do not just instinctively survive. They learn from their parents. Behavior begins to be transmitted not only through genes, but also through experience. Time passes. Millions of years. The Jurassic period is replaced by the Cretaceous. The climate changes, continents drift, flowering plants appear. Dinosaurs still rule the world, but their era is coming to an end. About 66 million years ago, an event occurs that will change everything. A giant asteroid falls to Earth. Dust rises into the atmosphere, blocking the sun. A global extinction begins. Most dinosaurs disappear. The forest falls silent. But in this silence, those who were in the shadows survive. Small, secretive, adaptable mammals. Now, the stage belongs to them. Over the next millions of years, mammals rapidly evolve. Liberated ecological niches are filled by new forms: hoofed animals, predators, rodents, bats, cetaceans. Some go into the water, others into the sky, others onto land. But in one group inhabiting the tree canopy, especially important changes occur. These creatures are primates. They will be the heroes of the next chapter. But for now, night, warm, humid, full of rustles, smells, and quiet movement. Branches stir under light paws. In the depths of a burrow, a tiny animal trembles, sheltering its offspring. Somewhere under the roots of trees, A curled-up ball senses the smell of rain and, perhaps, dreams. These dreams do not yet know words, but they already carry a path, the path to you. You lie as they lay millions of years ago, our distant ancestors, with closed eyes, with a heart beating in silence, with a body in which all the history of life lives. And this story continues softly, without pauses. It breathes with you, whispers to you, and calls you further. It all begins in the forest. Ancient trees stretch towards the light. Their crowns intertwine, forming a green canopy through which sunbeams pierce. The air is filled with humidity, the smells of leaves, earth, and life. In these jungles, in the shadowy labyrinths of branches, creatures appear that will take the next step in evolution. These are primates. This happened about 60 million years ago. The first primates were small, agile, tree-dwelling creatures. Their fingers were long and grasping, and their opposable thumbs allowed them to cling to branches, hold food, and move in the three-dimensional space of the forest. Their eyes were positioned on the front of their heads, giving them stereoscopic vision, the ability to see depth and estimate distance. This vision would become one of the most important tools of the mind. Life in the tree canopy requires attentiveness, flexibility, and subtle perception. Primates develop their brains, especially the areas responsible for vision, movement, and social behavior. They begin to live not alone, but in groups. Connections arise between them, not merely instinctive, but individual. Each member of the group becomes significant. This is not just a pack, it is the beginning of society. As relationships between individuals become more complex, the brain develops further. It no longer just regulates behavior. It begins to remember, to recognize, to plan, and, most importantly, to understand others. For the first time on Earth, the rudiments of empathy appear, the ability to feel another's state. This quality will be essential for humans. It will become the foundation of morality, art, love, and friendship. But for now, it is only awakening amidst the rustling of leaves and the sounds of tropical rain. Millions of years pass. Primates spread through the forests of Africa, Asia, and South America. Some become tiny, like mice. Others, the size of a large dog. Some, like lemurs, remain simple, nocturnal creatures. Others, like monkeys, acquire increasingly complex behaviors. And among them, a special lineage leading to us. These are the so-called hominoids, or great apes. About 20 million years ago, the ancestors of modern gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and humans appeared. These animals already possessed high mobility in their shoulder joints, allowing them to hang from branches, move with bursts and jumps. Their faces became expressive. They could display emotions, surprise, fear, pleasure. They recognized their kin, remembered who was friend and who was foe. Their brains grew larger and larger, especially in the neocortex, the area that in humans would be responsible for abstract thought. Evolution proceeds slowly but inexorably. Apes learn to use simple tools, stones, sticks, branches. They groom each other, care for their young, and warn of danger. They look at the world not just with their eyes, but with attention. And when the ancestors of humans one day begin to contemplate fire, the sky, the stars, it will be a continuation of this gaze. One of the most important changes occurs when some of these creatures begin to leave the trees. This does not mean they immediately become bipedal. At first, They simply spend more time on the ground. Forests thin out, climates change, savannas expand, and in these new conditions, those who can adapt survive. About 7 million years ago, the first hominins appeared, creatures on the cusp between apes and humans. These were not yet Homo, not human in the usual sense, but they already walked upright. Their pelvis changed to support an upright body. The spine curved, the neck balanced the head. The hands were freed. They no longer needed to bear weight during walking. This was a revolution. Now hands could hold, could create, could millions of years later write, draw, play music. For now this creature simply walks across the savanna. Its steps are uncertain but persistent. It carries its offspring in its arms. It notices food in the trees and not only remembers the way, but also plans how to return there. Its eyes look far ahead, and in its head, the rudiments of what can be called I slowly begin to form. You hear this story now because, in the distant past, one branch of primates took this path, the branch leading to you, the branch on which reason grew. And although millions of years still separate you from the first humans, in your every movement, in every gesture of your hands, in every gaze, the memory of these creatures is present. When you go to sleep, your brain, the heir to an ancient nervous system, shuts off external stimuli. It activates dreams. These dreams are ancient. They have their roots in that very forest where your ancestors hid from predators, searched for fruits, and fed their young. Sleep is a return. It is a way to live on, maintaining a connection with the depths. And now, as you fall asleep, know this: the forest lives within you. The memory of fingers clinging to a branch lives within you. Vision that distinguishes light through foliage. An emotion that originated in the expression on the face of an ancient creature. All of this is you. You are the continuation of a dream that began in the shadow of trees. Warmth. The air breathes dry grass, the distant smell of rain and ash that once rose over the savannas. The space is vast, almost endless. This is not a forest. This is not a jungle. This is an open place where you cannot hide in the foliage, where you need to look far ahead, where the wind rustles among thorny bushes. This is Africa, the cradle of humanity. About 7 million years have passed since the human evolutionary lineage diverged from a common ancestor with chimpanzees. We do not know its name. We have not seen its face. But its descendants are the oldest hominins. Among them, Sahelanthropus, Chidensis, Ardipithecus, Australopithecus. They were not yet humans, but they were no longer just apes. Their bodies changed. They began to walk confidently on 2 legs. Upright posture, one of the most significant transformations. The skeleton adapts. The pelvis becomes shorter and wider. The spine acquires an S shape. The feet straighten. The head lifts. The hands are freed. This opens up new possibilities. The creature can carry food, offspring, tools. It can look ahead, see the horizon where the wind plays with dust, and where life no longer hides, but runs. Australopithecus appeared about 4 million years ago. They lived in small groups, gathered fruits, hunted small animals, and defended themselves from predators. Their bodies were still covered in fur. They could climb trees, but increasingly stayed on the ground. Their jaws were massive, their teeth strong. They chewed tough vegetation, roots, raw seeds. All this required effort. But the most important thing happened not in the mouth, but higher up, in the head. The brain of Australopithecus was larger than that of other apes. It measured about 500 cubic centimeters, less than a third of the volume of a modern human brain, but already twice as large as a chimpanzee's. It was not yet capable of abstract thought, but it could already remember, recognize, and plan. These creatures understood where to hide, where to find water, when to migrate. They sensed each other, formed bonds. They had the beginnings of culture. Perhaps they used the simplest sounds for communication. No language yet existed, but the voice became important. It could express anxiety, interest, joy. They exchanged experience, not with words, but with actions. One showed another how to crack a nut, how to scare away a predator with a stick, how to care for the sick. This knowledge was transmitted not by blood, but through attention, through observation, through trust. Sometimes they found stones, sharp, heavy. Stones became an extension of their hands. This was the birth of the tool. They did not yet process it, but they already selected it by shape, by weight. Later, their descendants would begin to purposefully flake off edges, creating sharpened blades. But for now, the important moment was when the hand picked up an object not just for no reason, but with a purpose. This was a thought directed towards the external world. You can imagine one such creature. It walks across the savanna. Its skin is covered in dust, its face shaded by the sun. It carries a stone picked up that morning by the stream. It has a purpose, to break open a bone, to get to the brain that will provide energy, or to uproot a tuber, or to ward off an enemy. It does not yet know the words tool, action, or future. But all of this already lives in its gesture. Africa at that time was a place of change. The climate became drier and drier. Forests receded. Savannas expanded. Those who could walk, those who could see further, survived. Hominins followed food, water, and safety. They dispersed. Gradually, different species appeared: Australopithecus afarensis, Africanus, Sediba. Some disappeared. Others became ancestors of the genus Homo. Females carried their young for a long time. The young were born helpless, requiring care, warmth, and protection. This changed society. The need for cooperation arose, for the role of the father, for the help of elders. All of this formed the foundation of the family. It was at this moment that man became not just a biological creature, he became social. About 2.5 million years passed, and then, among the descendants of Australopithecus, a new creature appeared. It was called Homo habilis, the handyman. This was not modern human, but no longer just a hominin. Its brain was larger, up to 700 cubic centimeters. It created the simplest tools, flaking stone, making a cutting edge from it. It used sticks, bones. It hunted. It shared food. And at the same time, next to it, fire. It did not yet know how to light it, but perhaps it preserved smoldering embers after a lightning strike, or brought a burnt branch, or simply watched, long, intently, as the flame danced. This sight awakened something inside, something that would one day become a myth, a song, a fire at the entrance to a cave. You listen to all this and perhaps feel a slight resonance within, something ancient, as if within you lives the memory of that savanna, that hand holding a stone, that gaze fixed on the flame. This is because you are a continuation. You are not just a descendant. You are history made flesh. thought made breath. A step made word. Today on the planet, you are a creature with reason. But the path to that reason began here, in hot Africa, where the ancestors of humans took their first steps on dusty ground, where they learned not just to survive, but to feel, and to pass that feeling on, through hands, through eyes, through gestures. And even now, in complete silence, as you prepare for sleep, you carry this path within you. It continues. It has not been broken. It goes through your every thought, every memory, every breath. And as you fall asleep somewhere far away in the ancient savannah, a hominin raises its head to the stars. It does not yet know what they are, but you already know. And in this, there is connection. You and he. One story. You are in Africa again, but the time is different now. The earth is not silent. It breathes. Warmth rises from the stones. The wind rustles in the dry grasses. In the distance, a bird's cry is heard. Amidst this pristine nature walks a creature. Its steps are short, its arms slightly longer than those of modern humans. It looks around. It thinks. This is Homo habilis, the handy man. It appeared about 2.5 million years ago. Its body is not inspiring, height no more than 1.5 meters, weight less than 50 kilograms, massive brow ridges, jaws still large. But the main thing is not this. The main thing is inside. The brain of Homo habilis is already noticeably larger than that of its ancestors. It reaches 700 cubic centimeters. This is more than a chimpanzee's and significantly more than an Australopithecus. The brain of this creature not only sees and feels, it is already capable of the simplest analysis, choice, and learning. Homo habilis lived in groups. It was not alone. Nearby were other similar creatures. They moved together, sought food, guarded offspring. They studied the surrounding world, not passively, but with attention. They remembered places where edible things grew, where water could be found, where predators lived. They coordinated. Their connection was not verbal, but it was strong. These were the first forms of conscious social life. At Homo habilis sites, archaeologists find fragments of bones with butchery marks and stone flakes with characteristic signs of striking. These marks speak of intention, tools, simple but purposeful. These are pebbles from which edges have been flaked, forming sharp edges. They were used for cutting meat, for cracking bones to get to the nutritious marrow. This is no longer just using objects. This is the beginning of technology. The process of tool-making itself requires observation and coordination. One needs to choose a suitable stone, understand from which side to strike, how to hold the blank. These actions are not instinct. They are the result of experience, and most importantly, they can be transmitted. One observes another, learns, repeats. For the first time, knowledge ceases to be accidental. It becomes culture. Homo habilis, perhaps, did not yet speak in the usual sense, but the sounds it made became more diverse. The larynx and skull already allowed for the formation of different noises, intonations. They could convey requests, anxiety, joy, fear. Vocal communication developed. The brain learned to distinguish meanings. This was not yet language, but its shadow. The life of Homo habilis was a series of transitions. They lived in a changeable climate, sometimes heat, sometimes rain, sometimes drought. They adapted, migrated, changed campsites. Their diet was varied: roots, seeds, meat, insects. Sometimes they hunted. More often they scavenged after predators. But with each generation, they became more inventive. The brain of Homo habilis was especially active in those areas that, in modern humans, are responsible for planning and manual coordination. The hand became not just a tool, but an extension of thought. An internal model of action appeared, not just do, but imagine what you will do. This was the beginning of abstraction. Thought began to precede movement. Perhaps they had the first rituals. There is no evidence of burials yet. But there are signs of care for the weak. There are traces of cooperative raising of young. This means that these creatures already felt more than fear and hunger. They were capable of compassion. They were capable of waiting, of sharing food, of being close. Their nights passed by the bones of fallen animals, by stone fragments, under the branches of trees. Perhaps they watched the fire if they found smoldering embers after a thunderstorm. Perhaps they feared the dark, or perhaps they dreamed. Their dreams were simple, bodily, without words. But even in sleep, their brain worked. It remembered the path. It felt closeness. It predicted. You, lying in silence now, are a continuation of this lineage. Your hands are capable of the finest movements because once Homo habilis held a sharpened stone in them. Your thoughts are fast and complex because its brain once began the path to abstraction. Your speech exists because it made sounds discernible to its kin. You are the memory of the one who first picked up a tool and looked at it not merely as an object, but as an extension of will. And as you fall asleep, your brain goes through the same phases that evolution refined for millions of years. Sleep is an ancient state. In it, the oldest connections awaken. Peace, a sense of security, the closeness of loved ones. All of this was already present in those who lived millions of years ago. They are no more, but you are here. And as you breathe slowly, deeply, calmly, the echo of their thoughts resonates within you. It is not loud, it is soft, and it lives within you. You already know how the journey begins. It starts with a step, with a thought, with a touch to a stone. But now you stand by the fire. Before you, a new form, a new being. It is tall, slender, walking confidently on solid ground. This is Homo erectus, the upright man. It appeared about 1.9 million years ago and for a long time remained the main character on the stage of human evolution. Its body is almost the same as yours. Upright posture, strong skeleton, developed musculature. Its height reaches almost 1 meter 80 centimeters. It is resilient. It can walk for hours, run, carry, survive in the most diverse conditions. It moves far from the tropical savannas. It settles in places where it is already cooler, where night brings not only stars, but also cold. And it has an ally. This is fire. Homo erectus was the first human species that not only used fire, but likely knew how to preserve it. It could maintain the flame, feed it with branches, protect it from rain. Perhaps it still could not light it independently. That would take time. But if a lightning strike caused a fire, if wood burned, it knew. This fire could be taken with it. This knowledge was a treasure. Fire becomes the center of life. The campfire is warm. It repels predators. It allows cooking food, making it softer and more nutritious. It extends the day. Now the community does not disperse in the dark. Now they can sit side by side in a circle where faces flicker, where smoke rises, where the crackling of logs becomes the voice of the night. Fire changes everything. It provides time for communication, for simply being together. And then the next thing happens. Homo erectus becomes a traveler. It begins migrations. Its traces are found not only in Africa, but also in Asia, in the territory of modern Caucasus, Indonesia, China, Europe. It travels thousands of kilometers. Its legs carry it over mountains, through valleys, along riverbanks and lakes. It finds new lands. It survives. It changes. The brain of Homo erectus reaches a volume of over 1,000 cubic centimeters. This is almost as much as that of modern humans. It does not yet think abstractly, does not create art, but it builds campsites, plans hunts, uses diverse stone tools. It understands the rhythms of nature, waits for animal migrations, knows how to choose a place for a stopover, shelter from the wind. It does not just survive, it begins to settle. Its tools improve. Hand axes appear, symmetrical, sharpened, comfortable. Their form requires prior conception. They are made of strong flint, sometimes transported over long distances. This is no longer just a tool, it is an object created with intent. The hand of Homo erectus is already the hand of a craftsman. Thoughtfulness appears in its eyes. The gaze ceases to be merely a reaction to movement. It becomes observant, comparing. Apprentices watch their elders. Sons and daughters watch their mothers. Behavior is transmitted. Culture begins to develop. Slowly, generation after generation. Homo erectus lived in groups. It hunted cooperatively. Perhaps it coordinated with gestures, voices, shouts. It cared for the weak, sometimes feeding the sick and old for a long time. This means it possessed the basis of empathy, and thus the basis of humanity. During this time, Earth's climate did not stand still. Ice ages came, the landscape changed, harsh conditions arose. Homo erectus adapted. It sewed the simplest clothes from skins, used shelters. It created the first signs of seasonal thinking, where to shelter in winter, where to find food in summer. This is already the rudiments of a calendar, and although it does not yet look at the stars with a question, it already lives in time. It is believed that Homo erectus was the first to develop the rudiments of speech. Its skull and the structure of its respiratory passages suggest it could produce more varied sounds. Its language, if it existed, did not contain grammatical structure, but could denote actions, objects, names. This was the beginning of speech, the beginning of dialogue, the beginning of history. Much time passed. Homo erectus lived on the planet for almost 2 million years. No other human species lived so long. It disappeared only about 100,000 years ago. But during that time, it managed to leave a deep mark, not in artifacts, not in monuments, but in ourselves, in the structure of our hands, in the rhythm of our gait, in the patient mind capable of observing, learning, waiting. Today, you live in a completely different world. But when you look at a flame, when you fan the embers in a fireplace, when you hike along a shore, you become closer to it, to Homo erectus. Like you, it loved warmth, sought closeness, fell asleep by the fire. Its sleep was filled with the sounds of the wind, the smell of smoke, and the quiet beat of its heart. In that sleep, there were no words, but there was a feeling. I am not alone. My kin are near, and you are not alone either. Your story is long, and you carry it within you. And as you fall asleep, the warmth of the ancient campfire still warms your memory, the memory of the one who walked first, who walked far, who walked forward. Imagine a cold wind touches your skin. The air is clear and transparent. Trees stand bare, the ground is covered with frost, and in the distance, the silhouette of mountains. This is no longer the savanna. This is Europe and Western Asia during the last ice age. Other people live here, not like us, but not entirely alien either. These are Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalensis. They appeared about 400,000 years ago and for a long time shared the earth with our direct ancestors. Their bodies were strong, massive, with short limbs and a broad torso. Everything about them speaks of survival in a harsh climate. Their noses were wide to warm the icy air. Their muscles were strong to carry game. Drag logs survive the icy night. But Neanderthals were not only strong, they were intelligent. Their brains were even slightly larger than those of modern humans. They were structured differently and perhaps worked differently. They were not scientists or philosophers, but they knew a lot. Their minds were practical, attentive, finely tuned to the world around them. Neanderthals created tools, precise, sharp, complex. They used various types of stone, honed the shape, and selected the material. Their tools were not just pieces of flint, they were hand axes, scrapers, points. They hunted mammoths, bison, deer. They made traps. They worked in groups. They knew the terrain, knew the animals, knew the seasonal routes. But most importantly, they knew each other. Their sites speak of care, of loss, of living together. Scientists find skeletons with signs of severe injuries, but healed, which means they were cared for. There are traces of old people who lived to a ripe old age for those times. This means they were not abandoned. They were loved, and they also buried their dead. Carefully, attentively. Sometimes they placed tools nearby. Sometimes flowers. We don't know what they thought about death, but it wasn't just the departure of a body. It was a farewell, and therefore memory, and therefore culture. Neanderthals likely wore clothing made of skins. Perhaps they adorned their bodies. In caves in Spain and France, handprints, animal drawings, and symbols have been found. There is evidence that they used pigments, ochre, black pigment. Some scientists believe they may have had the rudiments of symbolic thinking. Perhaps these were not only images, but also signs. Perhaps the beginning of writing, the beginning of art. Their speech remains a mystery, but the structure of the larynx and ear and the FOXP2 gene linked to language suggests that they could speak. Perhaps not like us. Perhaps their speech was more guttural, more bodily. But perhaps they knew names, gave names to things, expressed feelings with words, and if so, then they sang, whispered, called to each other in the dark. Their nights were long. They lived in caves, where fires smoked, where the walls were warm from their breath. Their children slept, pressed against their mothers. Their hands touched the fire with respect. Their dreams were, perhaps, like ours, about mammoths, about fear, about hunger, about the sun, or perhaps about the sky. Neanderthals were not alien to us. We did not merely coexist. We met, and we had children together. Modern humans carry up to 4% of Neanderthal DNA. We are different, but we are related. And in this night, full of silence, you can feel that kinship. It is not in words. It is in breath. About 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals disappeared. Why is still unclear. Perhaps the climate became too harsh. Perhaps competition with Homo sapiens was too great. Perhaps they simply merged with other humans. But they did not disappear completely. Their genes are in us. Their silence is in our dreams. Their fires are in our memory. And if you ever see a handprint on a stone in the darkness of a cave, know this: it was a human. One who felt as you do, who lived as you do, who left but is not forgotten. You close your eyes, and within you resonates the silence of ancient caves, the warmth of the campfire, a stone in your palm, the voice of one who is no more, but who was, and who is still a part of you. You rise at the dawn of the world. Before you is not a cave or a savanna, but a space filled with voices. This is not the sound of animals, nor the rustle of grass. It is a sound with rhythm, repetition, intonation. These are words. This is speech. This is Homo sapiens, wise human. Our species appeared approximately 300,000 years ago in East Africa. Physically, it resembled us: a slender body, a straight forehead, a light skull, an expressive face, eyes that already reflected an inner world. But the main difference was inside. This was a mind strong enough not only to survive, but also to comprehend. From the very beginning, Homo sapiens displayed astonishing flexibility. It was able to adapt to different climates, to new conditions. Within 100,000 years of its appearance, it began to spread across the planet, through the Middle East into Eurasia, then into South Asia, further into Australia and Europe, and later into the Americas. It walked as its ancestors did, but now it walked with thought, with an image, with a story. What did it carry with it? Not only tools, not only fire. It carried speech, the ability to name, explain, remember, and dream. Language became the main invention. With its help, knowledge was passed down, experience accumulated, connections built. Thanks to language, humans ceased to be solitary. They became part of a community capable not only of acting together, but also of thinking together. Speech led to art. As early as 40,000 years ago, people drew on cave walls: bison, deer, hands, lines, dots. These images were not merely decorations, they were memory. They were an attempt to leave a trace. They were a story without words. Perhaps they were a prayer, perhaps a song. People began to create music. Archaeologists find bone flutes, made tens of thousands of years ago. They resonated in caves where fire cast dancing shadows. Perhaps the sounds mimicked birdsong, the rustle of wind, the beat of a heart. Or perhaps they were already a motif, a rhythm, a way to connect with others, with the past, with spirits. Homo sapiens buried their dead with care. They placed objects, ornaments, pigments nearby. Sometimes shells, teeth, necklaces. This means they had a concept of death, and therefore of time, and therefore of themselves. They could ponder, who am I? Where did I come from? Where will I go? People began to build. First, temporary shelters made of mammoth bones, branches, skins. Then, settlements. First, small seasonal ones, then permanent ones. The domestication of fire, animals, and seeds began. Slowly, over millennia, humans transitioned from a nomadic to a sedentary life. This was a new era, but it all began earlier, in the head, in the feeling of belonging, in the desire to preserve. The word became the main support. It allowed for the creation of myths to tell about the origin of the world, about ancestors, about gods, about the causes of rain and thunderstorms. People became not just creatures, they became carriers of culture. With the development of speech, memory developed. People could remember more, could pass on more. Thus, history began. First, oral, then written. But long before writing, by the fire, under the stars, they told stories, and they told them not only to others, but to themselves. You hear this voice. It is not loud. It is like a breath, like a warm wind over the plain. This is the voice of the first storyteller. He holds the stick with which he hunted, and next to him a child who looks at him. And in that gaze, trust, and in the story, life. Rational human was not perfect. He made mistakes. He fought. He feared. He suffered. But he learned. He remembered. And he believed that something could be changed, that a mark could be left, that understanding was possible. Your fingers, when they touch a book, light, keys, are the same fingers that once drew with charcoal on a cave wall. Your eyes, when they look into the face of a loved one, are the same eyes that once gazed intently into the face of the hunter who walked ahead. Your heart, when it longs, hopes, loves, is the same heart that beat in the chest of a human by the fire. And when you fall asleep, you are not alone. With you, the entire journey, all of history, all the whispers of ages. And if you listen closely, you will hear how a song once began, a song in which you yourself resonate. You have come a long way. Millions of years have turned like pages in a book, written not with ink, but with genes, bones, ash, glances, and fire. You started as a molecule in a warm ocean. You went through the impulses of fins, the breath of the first lungs, the crawling reptiles, the nocturnal rustles of mammals, the leaps through branches, and the first sounds of ancient larynges. Now you're here. You, a human, Homo sapiens, thinker, keeper, heir. Your body is not an accident. In every detail, there is a trace of evolution. Your hand, the fruit of millions of years of honing movement. Your spine, the journey from water to land. Your ears, the transformation of an ancient balance mechanism. Your eyes, ancient lenses that once discerned movement in water. Even the dreams you have are part of that same memory. Soft, deep, slow. But humans are not just bodies. They are consciousness. Within you is the ability to remember, to question, to reflect. This was not a gift. It arose from the need to live together, to care, to plan. Thoughts did not come immediately. First there were sensations, then a gesture, then a sound, then a word, then a story. Now, as you hear these words, you continue that same journey. You are history that knows how to tell itself. Look at how the universe is structured. You were born on a planet that arose from the dust of dead stars. From this dust formed mountains, rivers, air, and all living things. You breathe the same atoms that were once part of distant galaxies that disappeared before Earth appeared. You drink water that once rained on dinosaurs. You carry within you the warmth born in the hearts of stars. You are inseparable from the world. Everything in you is a part of it. When you touch a stone, you touch the past. When you close your eyes, you hear the rustle of time. And when you fall asleep, you feel as if you're returning to the beginning, to that very point where everything was possible, where everything was just beginning. Today, billions of people live on Earth. Each has their own path, but all have a common origin. We are all descendants of the same ancestors. We speak different languages, but we cry the same. We love, we fear, we rejoice. This is our essence. We are a species capable of compassion, capable of creating music, building cities, healing, dreaming, forgiving. You are the continuation of the one who first picked up a stone, the one who looked at fire, the one who sang by the campfire, and the one who first thought, "Why am I here?" These questions remain with us. They do not weaken, they become deeper. This is not weakness, this is strength. Humanity is still on its way. We have not completed our evolution. It continues in culture, in science, in love, in choice. And we make that choice every minute, to be kinder, to be more attentive, to listen, not to forget where we came from. When you wake up tomorrow, you will be the same person you are today. But perhaps you will feel a little clearer. Remember, a little deeper. Be a little gentler with yourself, because you remembered. You are part of a history billions of years long, and you are not alone, never were. Now you lie down. Close your eyes. Inside, silence, warmth, peace. Everything has passed. Everything has come to pass. Inhale, and you return to the planet's breath. Exhale, and you let go of worries. Everything is in its place. You don't rush. You simply exist. You don't seek. You have already found. You don't fear, because you remember. You are the memory of the stars. You are the breath of the earth. You are human. Sleep peacefully. You are home.